Welcome to another episode of Economic Realities, the podcast where we break down the complex world of economics into something you can understand. I'm Kuppa, and today we have a fascinating discussion lined up: hyperinflation and the devaluation of PNG's currency, the kina. With me today are our wonderful co-hosts, Janelle, Lorraine, and Gian. Say hi, everyone.
Hi everyone, excited to dive into this crucial topic. Hyperinflation is a term that's thrown around a lot, but what does it actually mean for people in the economy right now?
Hi everyone, Lorraine. Yeah, it's interesting because hyperinflation doesn't just affect economies in theories, it impacts everyday lives in very tangible ways.
Hey folks, glad to be here. This topic is especially relevant now, given what's been happening with global inflation rates and the economic pressures on countries like PNG.
All right, let's get started by defining what hyperinflation is. Janelle, would you like to take that?
So hyperinflation is when prices of goods and services skyrocket uncontrollably in a short period of time. Typically, it's defined as inflation exceeding 50% per month. What this means in practice is that the value of money plummets and people need more and more of it to buy even basic goods.
And in the case of Papua New Guinea, the kina has been slowly devaluing, right? So it's not a full-on hyperinflation situation yet, but there's concerns about rapid inflation due to global pressures among other factors.
Exactly. The kina has lost value over time, which affects purchasing power. For a country like PNG, whose economy is reliant on imports, a weaker kina means higher costs for imported goods. That adds to inflation, especially for food, fuel, and basic necessities.
Yeah, and I was reading that the devaluation of the kina had a lot to do with the global demand for foreign currencies like the US dollar. Since PNG's economy is resource-based, when commodity prices fall, the country's revenue drops, putting pressure on the kina.
And when you have less foreign currency coming in, it's harder for the government to stabilize the exchange rate. This makes it more expensive to import goods, which in turn fuels inflation and you get stuck in this vicious cycle.
Which brings up an important question about what this means to everyday people. Gian, you've looked into this. How are people in Papua New Guinea coping with rising prices?
Well, the situation is really tough for average households. The cost of imported goods like rice and fuel has gone up significantly. And with the kina being weaker, it takes more kina to buy the same amount of goods. For people living in rural areas where subsistence farming is common, they're somewhat insulated, but anyone relying on imports or working in an urban community is feeling the pinch. A good example of this would be when if income earners, you have income earners going to the store and they're spending more of or a higher proportion of their income just to purchase basic necessities. And this isn't just for like the low income earners. This applies to everyone in general.
Yeah, and it's not just about food and fuel. Inflation also affects education, healthcare, and wages. The government's ability to provide services gets stretched thin when their currency has less value. This leads to higher costs for public services or a decline in their quality.
What's interesting is that this isn't a new phenomenon for PNG. The kina has been gradually devaluing for over a decade, but global factors like supply chain disruptions and geopolitical tensions have worsened situations. Right, Gina?
Absolutely. It's like a perfect storm of local and global economic forces. The pandemic hit global supply chains hard, and now with other disruptions like the war in Ukraine, energy prices are volatile, making it harder for economies like PNGs to stay less defensive.
And then there's the question of what can be done to mitigate this. So far, the government and the central bank have tried to keep inflation in check. But when external pressures are strong, there's only so much you can do.
Okay, let's dive into solutions for a bit. What could be done to stabilize the kina and prevent further inflation?
Well, one idea is that the government could try to diversify its economy. Right now, PNG is heavily reliant on natural resources, things like mining, oil, and gas. When commodity prices fluctuate, the economy takes a hit. If they invested in other sectors like agriculture and tourism, it might reduce their vulnerability.
Makes sense. Strengthening local industries could reduce reliance on imports and help stabilize the currency in the long term. But that takes time, and in the short term, they might need more direct intervention.
or even getting international financial aid to support the country. But the key challenge remains. How do you stop inflation once it starts running wild? And for PNG, we've had a lot of cases where we've been getting financial aid from other countries, to the point where our debt has increased to made it to billions. So how are we supposed to help ourselves when we're getting majority of the help that we're getting from outside countries and we can't even pay them back?
Right, when we start, true.
I think they should focus more on tourism. That would our nation would gain a lot, and our
they
GDP
could
would
open more
increase.
cases.
Yeah,
Yes.
one thing is they don't use the funds that we borrow. They don't use it properly and allocate it to the right stations or
Because we have the resources.
Yeah.
It's just the whole point of using it
The
optimally.
people managing it.
proper allocation of resources.
It's a complex problem for sure. Let's wrap this up with some final thoughts. Janelle, what's your takeaway on the devaluation of the Kina and hyperinflation risk?
I think the key here is that while hyperinflation hasn't fully hit PNG yet, the current devaluation of the kina shows just how interconnected local economies are with global markets. If the country doesn't manage its currency carefully, it's going to spiral.
For me, it's a reminder that inflation isn't just about numbers on a page. It's about real people. When currency loses value, it's families who feel the brunt of it in their everyday lives.
Yeah, and as we've discussed, the solutions are complex. But I hope that with the right policies and economic diversification, PNG can avoid the worst effects of hyperinflation.
So guys, back to the topic of being accountable. We should start off with tourism. Someone needs to find a good help to start with tourism. Once we get good income.
Because I think we're focusing more on the agricultural and in economics we learned that they're perishable items, right? So they can't be stored for long and they're seasonal as well. So when the demand is higher than what the producers can supply, that just clashes with the income coming in, and then how are we supposed to get the money for our government to provide for the people? So it just complicates everything.
Okay, great points, everyone. This is for today's episode. We hope you found this discussion on hyperinflation and the devaluation of the kina insightful. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to Economic Realities, where you get your podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes on the biggest economic challenges facing the world today. Until next time.
Bye.